High prices during this global inflation crisis are hurting Bahamian families. Why should we continue to import 90% of our food? It's time for real change. We are transforming and modernizing agriculture to create more opportunities for Bahamian entrepreneurs and to keep more of the $1 billion we spend on food every year here in our country. Major steps toward reshaping agriculture and increasing our food security include developing a multi-million-dollar domestic poultry market with grants for Bahamian farmers, providing millions in funding for 100% Bahamian-owned farms to create modern, climate-resilient operations, and facilitating the production of 27 million eggs every year in the Bahamas. Every chicken in a grocery bag should come from a Bahamian farmer. This is just the beginning of what will be a $100 million investment in food security and production. In 2023, I'm going to be traveling throughout the country, sharing information about these and many other opportunities, encouraging a new generation of farmers and fishermen, and working with Bahamians across our islands to usher in a new era for agriculture in the Bahamas.
Good morning. It is a pleasure and Happy New Year to all of you. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our first press briefing for the year. We have an exciting briefing planned for you today. We have truly missed all of you, seeing all of your faces here, and of course those joining us via the stream. It is a pleasure to have you. I'm going to welcome now our Press Secretary, Clint Watson, who will introduce our guests for today.
Good morning. Thank you, Jillian, and good morning to all of you joining us this morning, and welcome to all of you joining us by various mediums, Facebook, live on television at ZNS, and other mediums. Happy New Year to all of you, and we're happy to be back for another year to serve you and to keep you updated on the progress that the Davis Cooper administration is making as we seek to serve the Bahamian people. There is a lot on the agenda for this year, a very aggressive agenda. We've had phenomenal success in 2022 working for the Bahamian people. We've had some failures, meaning things that we like to have done, we weren't able to accomplish or get done at the speed that we would like to have it done at. And so the number of things that we want to address this year as we continue to work on behalf and for the Bahamian people. Today, though, we're going to focus on key areas that are happening, particularly at the beginning of the year, and that is renewal of business licenses, revenue collection, all of those sorts of things. And so we've asked the key representatives from the Department of Inland Revenue and the Customs, major revenue collectors, to talk to us today about some of those things so that people can understand. I know there's been some fuzziness and some confusion around what new requirements will be required or how to get things done. And so we want to make sure that we're able to explain that to you so that you have the tools that you need to operate effectively and efficiently this morning. And then we do have a couple of announcements to give to you from Prime Minister as well. So let's get right to it, and we will begin this morning by having the Acting Controller of Inland Revenue, Ms. Shonda Strawn, to come and talk to us about what should be happening at the beginning of the year and addressing those issues and concerns you may have, and then we'll come back and introduce our Customs Controller, who will speak to that end as well. So without further ado, Ms. Shonda Strawn, thank you for being back. Welcome.
So good morning, everybody, and a very happy new year. It's wonderful to see my press colleagues. And this morning, we're just going to talk a bit about business license. It's that time of year when all business licenses are due for renewal. And that's a kind of a change. So I guess a couple of things. There have been some changes to the Business License Act. So July 2022, there were some amendments. And so we're going to touch on them. There were 5 major amendments to the Business License Act, but I'm really only going to talk about 2 of them. And one of the more important ones is that change in the license year. So we've reverted to all licenses, all business licenses expire on the 31st of December well, in this case, it would be 2022. And so right now, all businesses are due for renewal. It's time to renew your business license. So January 31st is the deadline for businesses to submit their business license renewal applications. And they have until March 31st to make those payments. That's key because prior to the July 2022 amendment, we had various years where you could, or I should say periods where you could renew or opt to renew your license. So in some cases, you had April, June, and September that you had. But right now, everything has gone back to the calendar year, and so all business licenses expired on the 31st of December last year. So what does that mean? It means that it's time for businesses to submit their applications online. Everything is online. It's a strictly online process. There's no need to come into the department. You can do everything online. And businesses are asking, well, what is it that they require? By and large, if a business generates a turnover of $100,000 or more, the key thing for them to submit is their accountant certification. So if you're a small guy, a small business that generates less than $100,000 a year, you really don't have anything to submit to us, but you do need to prove to us or justify or verify your turnover. And I guess the biggest challenge for the Department of Inland Revenue is really turnover, that word right there. So if you take anything away from this press briefing, it's turnover. What is your turnover? What is a business's turnover? It's not your net profit. Your turnover is everything that comes into the business, all revenue that the business takes in before any deductions. So it's anything earned by the business, cash, anything that is an improvement or is a revenue that the business generates. Before you make that payroll deduction, before you pay any expenses, that's the amount, that is your turnover amount. And that's critical because what we're finding is that most businesses really don't report their true turnover. And the challenge the Department of Inland Revenue is having is verifying what that turnover amount is. So we have just under 50,000 businesses that registered last year. So we know that we will expect to have more than 50,000 businesses renew their business licenses this year. So that's our 50,000 businesses, and of that 50,000 businesses, really only about 9,000 of them are registered for VAT. And so what that tells us then is that you have more than 40,000 businesses that are saying they generate less than $100,000 a year. I don't know about that. So this year, we're going to be asking questions. We're going to have a dialogue with the businesses as they submit their application. So let's say you're a liquor store and you're renewing and you're telling us your turnover is $20,000 a year. We're going to say, to that, right? You're a fast food restaurant. You know, you sell chicken and crack conch, and you're telling us your turnover is $40,000 a year. We're definitely going to say, to that. And we're going to come back to you and ask you some questions, right? Let's look at $100,000. What is $100,000? $100,000 divided by 52 weeks. So if you're a business and you're open for 52 weeks out of the year, $100,000 is like $1,900 odd a week that you earn. So if you're earning $1,900 a week, or just over that, you should be a VAT registrant because your turnover is more than $100,000. If you are earning like about $385, that's a month. So if you're earning like about $385 a week, you should be a VAT registrant. So $100,000 a year, 1,000, just over, let's say $1,924 a month, or $385 a week, your turnover is more than $100,000. You should be a VAT registrant, and not only that, you should be submitting an accountant certification when you file. $385 a week? When you look at it, you spend about what, $8 buying a chicken snack? So I did the math, and when I broke it down, if you're making $385 a week and you're a fast food place, that's like about, that's about 48 chicken snacks in a week that you would have sold. If you're a liquor store and you sell in Colic, that's like about 48 cases of Colic or 48 cases of Bud Light in a week. $100,000. And the majority of the businesses are saying that they generate less than $100,000 a year. So our focus, the focus of the Department of Inland Revenue is on verifying turnover. That's what's going to be key. And a lot of people I know have heard some things back and forward in the press asking how we're going to do that. Well, questions, right? So we're coming to you and we're going to ask businesses certain questions. What's your utility bills like in a month? That gives us an idea. Because again, if you are generating less than $2,000 in a month, then there's no way your light bill for the month can be like $1,000 or $500. So certain questions will give us certain indications of which way we think your turnover is really, really going in. So the key is be truthful about your turnover. And again, turnover is not your net profit. It is everything that comes into the business before any deductions. And that's really the focus, because if we can verify the turnover, then we know we will meet the target. The government's target for this year for business license is about $124 million. And so far, for the first 6 months, while it's not business license, the renewal period isn't really, the payment period really isn't until March. We've only generated or brought in about $14 million so far for the first 6 months. So we know our key period or our key month is March. And so we expect to bring in the lion's share of our revenue in March. But again, we need persons to be truthful about the turnover that their business has brought in. And the good thing about it is now we have our partners, we have customs, we have data from the wholesalers. And so if you're a liquor store or a business that buys products wholesale, we do get information from the persons that you purchase from. So we get the wholesale, the amount of what it is businesses are purchasing locally, and also what it is they're importing. So we do have ways of verifying numbers, and that's going to be key this time around. The other major change, aside from the license date and turnover, is export turnover is back in. So for accountants, law firms, prior to July of last year, export turnover was excluded from the tax calculation. It's now back in. So it means then if you are an accountant or an attorney and you have clients that are not based in the Bahamas, or you offer advice where the advantage or the benefit is based outside of the Bahamas, you have to report the turnover earned from those clients as well, and we will tax you on that revenue. So that's major. Another change, I said two, but I'm going to throw in the third for free, is that the financial institutions are back in. They had been excluded from business license fees prior to July of last year. And so they, as of January of this year, they have to now apply for business license and pay the business license fees. So there is a schedule of fees now for all the financial institutions. So that's all of your banks, your money lenders, your credit unions. They all require business license for 2023. So those are the three major changes that were made in July. And our focus, as I said, is definitely going to be on verifying turnover. Another thing I can't leave without talking about real property tax. That's also a focus of the Department of Inland Revenue. And so bills went out in November. And so everybody, if you own a property, you should have received a bill even if that bill was zero. And so if you're a property owner and you haven't received a bill for 2023, I encourage you to come to the Department of Inland Revenue, well, really email us, so you could get a copy of that real property tax bill, and just know what your tax status is. It may be zero, because of course the owner-occupied exemption went up to $300,000, so there's a larger share of taxpayers that are now exempted from paying real property tax, but you should know what your real property tax assessment number is, and you should know what your tax status is for 2023. And that's it for now, so I'll be welcoming any questions during the question and answer period. Thank you. Questions now or during the question and answer period? Okay, well, I'll answer them until Clint comes back and moves me.
Could you explain in terms of business license renewal, the situation with landlords who
Oh, yeah, that
Could you-
was a common question, right? Okay, so if you're a tenant, if you are renting from, let's say, a shopping complex, or you're renting your business premises, you have a landlord. And so this year, we're asking you to tell us about your landlord. Tell us your assessment number. Now, a lot of businesses are saying, a lot of tenants are saying, my landlord won't give me that information. That's fine. Tell us then the name of your landlord and where the property is located. We're not holding you, the tenant, up for that information. I mean, provide the information. We can hold you up for not providing that information, but we won't hold you up if that landlord is delinquent in their real property tax. We just want to know from you, the tenant, that is renting a commercial premises, the name or location of that premise and the name of your landlord. Plus for you, if you can give us the assessment number. If you can't, that's fine. But we know that you can give us the name of the landlord, and we know that you could tell us the location of the premises. That's all we're asking for tenants. And then we will process your business license in the normal course. So we're not holding you up for that, right? Now, not the tenant. Now, the question about the landlord. If it's the landlord who is putting in their business license and they are delinquent in real property taxes, that's a different story. But now, a lot of persons have also asked, well, why you want to know the information from the tenant? Well, enforcement, we really have the right to garnish the tenant, right? So that may be something that we opt to do, but we won't hold your business license up for that. If the decision has been made that, okay, because the landlord, John Doe, is delinquent, you, the tenant, we know that you pay him rent monthly. You've told us who your landlord is. We've checked, we've seen that your landlord is delinquent. Well, we may come to you, the tenant, and appoint you to kindly pass the rent that you should pay to the landlord over to the real property tax department. We can do that.
Now, is that legal? Because they have a contractual obligation with the person they pay the money to.
Yeah, and the government also has a right to garnish in order to get its taxes. So it's a process for that. No, there's a process for that. We can appoint you, the good tenant, to assist us with that, right? And we do have the right to do that. But that will not hold up your business license process, right? You won't see that the same time as when you apply for the business license. It may be something that we come back after and have a discussion with you on, right?
Just for clarification, there were some business owners asking if they will be taxed for this turnover amount, or will they be taxed on their profit?
Turnover is not profit,
Okay.
right? Turnover is the revenue that comes into the business before any deduction in money and money's worth, right? You are taxed according to what comes into the business before you do any deduction, before you pay your rent, before you pay your utilities, before you pay your staff. So whatever you earn nightly, again, I like my fast food because I buy a lot of it. So if you're a fast food restaurant, every time you sell a chicken snack, a conch snack, whatever it is you're selling, each time you sell that, that's revenue coming in before you make any deductions. That's the turnover. That's the amount that you're supposed to report to the Department of Inland Revenue.
Explain the penalties or repercussions of businesses found falsifying documents or their turnover amounts.
Well, there are penalties. and there are some other things that we do. First of all, if we have a suspicion that something is not right about your turnover, we're going to perform an audit. Whether that be a desk audit, whether that is a field audit, and we come out to your business to investigate. But the first thing we're going to do is verify what it is. If we have doubts, we're going to verify, and then the penalties and other enforcement action will come after the fact, right? It could be that we decide to garnish. It could be that we decide to do some other things. But the law is clear in what we can do. But the first step for us is verifying what it is that you've made. That's key for us right now.
How much has the Department of Inland Revenue generated in taxes and fees so far for the last year?
Well, for business license, since I brought business license figures, business license, the budget was, or the forecast was around $100 million for 2021, 2022, and we generated about $91 million, right? This year, like I said, the forecast is 124 million. We'll be far from that, but it's understandable because really the heavy payment period is March, right? So when we report, I would say the 1st of April, that would give you an idea of whether or not we're on target. So far, we've only brought in about $14 million in this fiscal year. But like I said, that's understandable because the payment period is really March. March 31st is the payment deadline.
To garnish any wages as yet?
Not yet, but we're doing a lot of things this year that we probably would not have done before. And it's really because we are really trying to focus on our revenue targets and ensuring that the Bahamian people, the revenue that is due to the Bahamian people comes in. So we haven't done certain things before. Like, for example, real property tax. I love real property tax. We've been working with the banks. So now the banks, and they've been very helpful. They've started to pay the real property tax of their clients that have not been paying real property tax. So we're doing a lot of things differently. Garnishing is coming. We're going to do that.
You've been able to, for the foreign-owned properties, I know it was difficult getting the real property tax for that. What advancements have been made in that?
We've made some. So one of the changes in the July legislation, one of the amendments, was really to allow the department to be able to exercise the power of sale over more than just foreign-owned vacant land. Really, that's all we had the power to do prior to July. We now have the power to exercise the power of sale over all property other than owner-occupied Bahamian properties. That's major, right? So that's one thing that's coming down the pipeline. The second thing is that we have advanced a lot of properties, especially foreign-owned properties, not only foreign-owned properties, but especially foreign-owned properties, out to private collection. So we do have several private collection companies engaged, even overseas, that have been working with us, and so far we have seen where they have begun to make some headway. And so we'll be reporting on that shortly. We're not ready to report on it just yet, but a lot of accounts have been outsourced to private collection. Now, unfortunately, what that does is add an additional 40% onto the tax bill. But if persons haven't been paying, we've moved to begin enforcement action. That's it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strawn, for giving us that information, those key information, and taking those questions. We appreciate the work that you and your team are doing there. All right, let's talk about customs. Still the major revenue generator for the country, and I'm going to invite Customs Controller Ralph Monroe to come and talk to us too about the processes. Sir.
Good morning, and Happy New Year to all of you in the press. I don't have very much to give you this morning. I'm sure that most of you would have questions for me, other than to assure you that the Customs Department is well on its way to achieving the government objective. Presently, at the beginning of the year for most of the importers and brokers, large wholesale distributors. It's a process for renewing of customs bonds. For brokers, it's renewing of their annual custom broker's license. Clearly, in the press in recent days, there was much ado about a requirement that is now being made for brokers in particular to have their submission done electronically. I say it's much ado about nothing. The truth is that customs has been going electronic now for almost 20 years, and it's a slow process. We have done so incrementally over the years. Presently, we are seeking to have everybody come on board to submit their documents electronically. It's not only brokers, but of course, persons who do business with customs, the persons in shipping, whether you ship by air or by sea. We want you to interface with us electronically. We find it's a more efficient way. Of course, it is cheaper at the end of the day. It eliminates mistakes. And of course, we can have data readily available at all times, not only for ourselves, but for persons and international bodies. Time, in my view, is money. It's the greatest resource that we have. Time can always be created with money. The system that is being proposed and what we are working on haven't been perfected as yet, would save everybody time. And when we save time, clearly we save money. You note that there are two vendors that are basically engaged in the process. The government of the Bahamas have made a commitment to where persons are challenged financially to make it free to them. They can access our system free. The process haven't been completed. No one have been blocked out of the system. And for us, January is just another day at the office. What was going on in December is basically still going on. But we are pushing people, we're nudging them to get into this 21st century. Let's do things the way the rest of the world is doing it. And while persons may be stubborn, people seem a bit reluctant to change. People are afraid of change. I am convinced at the end of the day, they're going to find that it's best thing since sliced bread, because it's going to save everybody time, and it's going to give efficiency to the system. There are a few issues that we're going to have as a department. Clearly, all of you would have known that in recent times there were large amount of promotions in the department, and because of that, what it means is that we're going to have lots of changes within the various sections. Persons who would have been elevated would now be given different responsibility. Some of them who were section heads would be moved out into the administration, for instance. The islands are going to be affected in a great way. And of course, the public can look to see things like that happening probably as early as next month. You'll see lots of changes to custom stations. You'll see a lot of new faces. Also, because of the pandemic, persons were allowed to stay in their sections for many years, so to speak. It's not good for them. It's not good for the country. Persons in the business need to have more experience, and so we've got to move them around. If they're going to advance, they need to know a little bit more. And so 2 to 3 years is sufficient time to be in one area. Some of them have been there 8 and 9 years in some cases. That doesn't, to their own personal benefit, and so we're going to move some of them around. Also, it's not good for revenue. Customs Department, like many other law enforcement agency, you've always got to be careful. If you keep one person in one place too long, it can breed corruption. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. We want to have them move around so that we can also have freshness. It's good for them, it's good for the department, it's good for the country. We have had some complaint recently from the major distributors of alcoholic beverages in the Bahamas. And that complaint is that it has come to their attention that there are a lot of products on the Bahamian market that they have the sole distributorship for, that they are not responsible for selling to the public. We say it here at this press conference so that those persons who have run afoul of the law and may have imported them, whether they were smuggled or whether they did so simply without the permission because it's an intellectual property that the sole distributorship have, we are saying to them to cease and desist. That is an area that Customs is going to pursue vigorously. Lots of bears, we understand, that are out there, and the sole distributor have informed us that it didn't come through there. There are other hard alcoholic liquor that are out there, and they have informed us that they're not responsible for them being in the country. We're not saying that the duty haven't been paid. We're saying that persons who have an intellectual property, they have a right to guard that. They pay for it, it is their property, and we have a duty as a department to protect that property. And so all persons who may have run afoul of the law in that regard, we are putting them on warning that the Customs Department will be coming after you. After all, we are a country of laws, okay? We also note that there are a number of brokers who would have had concern. Their concern was that it was going to be too costly for them to integrate with the system. We are asking them to just sit back, to relax. Nothing is going to be done that is going to adversely affect you. The cost, if any is involved, is going to be borne by the government of the Bahamas. The Customs Department have already made a commitment to provide the necessary training, okay, to those brokers who may think that they are not prepared. Our IT section, they will make sure that the classroom is available, and they will conduct necessary section for you. If you don't get it in one session, we'll allow you a second and a third session until you get it. Our whole business is to ensure trade facilitation, okay? Gone are the days when we were just the big stick. We're not the big stick. We are a revenue collection agency. We can only collect revenue if there's revenue to collect. Our business is to try as best as we can to see how we can grow an economy, to work along with importers, to work along with our business partners in the community to grow. We want every business to succeed. The more you succeed, the more the country succeed. If you're bigger, we can get more from you. We don't want anybody to fail. If you have an issue, we're asking you to come into the department, give us a call. I'm available at any time, 24/7. You can call me, and any person who think, for whatever reason, they're not getting the kind of response, I always tell them I have a boss, and you can report me to my boss. We, the servants of the Bahamas, we want to make sure that we have got a country that is high above the competition. I'm always of the view that we should not be competing with anybody in the region. The choice should be clear, that Bahamas is blue chip. We don't have to fight. Our position should be secure. And so if it is a custom matter, I'm asking you to contact our persons within the various stations anywhere in the country. If you can't get them, then clearly call upon one of the persons in administration. And certainly if you can't get them or they don't give you the kind of response, then get in contact with me, and we'll make sure that it happens. We have recently had good relationship with persons in the various government agencies, in particular the law enforcement agencies, the police, the immigration department, and of course the Defense Force. We've bridged the gap. We are brothers in arms, and we're working closely together. I believe the results would have been seen in recent weeks. You would have seen where Customs have been responsible for seizures of firearms and, of course, of drugs. And I just say it's a different day. And, of course, we also give warning to those persons who have been engaged in those nefarious trade to cease and to desist. We have a duty, we have a commitment to the Bahamian people to work along with law enforcement officers to ensure that we have a safe and a just society. We stand by that commitment, and we are willing and ready to take on the challenge, of course, working with other law enforcement agencies. And so we say to the Bahamian, we are your Customs. Call upon us. We are not just the people in black and white at the airport looking in suitcases. We are more than that. We're responsible for near to $1 billion in your revenue collection. And I think you have done us well over the years. You've paid us. I believe every public officer would want to get more in salary. But the reality is, we know what the country can afford. We're glad to be your servants. And so we ask you, wherever you have the need, whether it's day, whether it's night, give us a call, come to our offices, let us know what is it that you need, and we are there to meet the challenge. Thank you.
Questions?
Can you explain a bit more about this free system that the customs brokers have access to or should have access to?
Yes, we're developing a system. It's not completed at this stage, and so you would have found, because of that, no one have been locked out. But we're developing a system right now as we speak with 2 vendors. One of those vendors have been here for many, many years, working with one of the largest or the largest broker in the country. And it is going to allow persons to interface with what we are doing, okay? And it's coming literally at no cost. The second vendor, I understand from my IT section, is a foreign person. And of course, they are making it available so that it can take no less than 3,000 brokers on at one time, okay? They should be finished in a matter of days, weeks, okay? And everybody should be able to log on and get the work done.
How much exactly was collected in revenue last year?
I don't have that figures yet. I'm sure the Ministry of Finance does. But of course, you would have known that we came out of the pandemic just prior to that, and so revenue at that time was a bit down, okay?
I'm interested in knowing if the liquor distributors are also concerned that some of these products are counterfeit.
Let me put it, that is a claim by some of them. The reality is, how do you determine a counterfeit? Customs wouldn't be in a position, because it's a whole lot of chemical analysis you would have to do. And the truth be told, I don't know if those persons making those claims are in position to. The only persons, in my humble opinion, as an officer, who can make such claim are the manufacturers or the producers themselves. Okay, you may suspect, but how do you know?
The Ministry of Finance sent a press release yesterday saying that the Customs Department can mandate any broker to choose the system that the Customs Department said he should choose. Where in the Act is that?
It is in the Act. I can't point you to the section. I should be able to as a controller, but it's in the Act because the Act makes reference to the controller being able to determine how any information is sent to the department, and it says that it can be done electronically or it can be done by written means. Okay.
That the Customs Department can mandate a certain vendor?
Not a segment, anybody and everybody. Okay, it doesn't discriminate against anybody, it just says that it can. And so once it speaks to everybody. Don't point to a particular individual.
There have been reports circulating that the Arcadia cruise ship recently docked off of Grand Bahama, but customs have been reportedly refusing to clear the passengers. Any truth to these reports?
I haven't heard that report. Sorry. Okay, thank you kindly.
Thank you, sir. We're always appreciative to have our senior government officials come and give information regarding us. Now, I've seen the online battle that's going on as to who's the big revenue earner. Someone said online it used to be customs until Inland Revenue came and introduced VAT. So is that correct? Inland Revenue. So VAT that's our largest revenue maker right now. Okay, so for clarity, it's no longer customs. It's the Department of Inland Revenue who's now bringing in the largest share of revenue. Thank you for clarifying that for us this morning. A couple of announcements I'll give to you from Prime Minister before we wrap this morning. And of course, firstly, we are in a new year, and as we usher in the new year, the Davis Cooper administration is focused on making gains in particular, but not limited to 4 main priority areas. Firstly, empowering Bahamians. Secondly, reducing the cost of living. Thirdly, providing affordable housing. And fourthly, reducing crime. Now we will begin the year with a major focus, as I said, on business development as well. The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center continues to invite entrepreneurs to capitalize on funding opportunities which will be made available, all a part of empowering Bahamians. As we continue to seek to empower Bahamians, the administration will not lose sight of the importance of education, a key component in empowering Bahamians. This year, the Davis administration will continue to disrupt some unsettling trends in education triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. The administration is happy that in the last year, however, they've seen a significant gain in persons attending school. School attendance has increased significantly. School monitors have been engaged to assess student progress, and learning loss testing will begin soon as a focus on supporting students struggling to reach or maintain grade level standards. We'll also update you on the progress of the Learning Loss Committee mandated to assess and improve student progress in the days ahead. We also talked about the cost of living, addressing that issue and seeking to reduce that. We realize it continues to be a burden on the back of consumers around the world. The entire world is looking at ways to navigate through some trying times. The government, however, has put in place a series of cost-cutting measures, reducing the cost of food and medication through import cost reductions, so putting in place some measures, temporary holds, so that consumers can have some breathing space, and keeping those margins at where they are temporarily, so that people can have relief. We look forward to concessions to continue to benefit Bahamians as the government meets and determine what those other concessions will be and other avenues and relief measures. We'll make those available to you once those are determined. Also, the Davis administration is taking, as we said, affordable housing development very aggressively this year. As you know, the Pinecrest development is behind us now, with some 40 new homes that young Bahamian professionals have received keys to. Elsewhere, the Renaissance development in the southwestern part of the capital, Carmichael area, is also progressing well, with 46 foundations already laid. Central Pines in Abaco, 6 homes have been completed. 5 homes have been repaired to accommodate the Ministry of Housing's rent-to-own program, and those housing communities continue to have development. Eleuthera, between 4 to 7 foundations have been laid in a housing development that's going on there as well. Back to Abaco, I wanted to also mention, set to begin soon, a new housing development in the central area of Abaco, known as Pine Tree. This subdivision will be developed on a plot of land previously designated for a housing development, which did not materialize. That's going to happen as well. Construction also expected to begin in Grand Bahama this year for even larger size homes. And this will be through a private-public partnership initiative as well. Construction should be beginning this year as well. We can also tell you about Potana. You heard us talk about it. It's a revolutionary product that's a company of Rick Fox, former NBA great Rick Fox, an ambassador for the government. Heads of agreement was signed regarding that, environmentally friendly homes. You may remember that. We're set to begin those homes this year as well and see the fruition of that. Some 30 lots, we're told, in Sands Cove, Abaco, is expected to take place this year. So the bottom line is a very aggressive housing initiative this year to provide more homes for Bahamians. And then, of course, we talked about the issue of crime, being able to reduce that. And you'll hear more of that from the Commissioner of Police, Clayton Fernando, who will in short order release crime statistics and talk about some of the new strategies that are on the horizon to address the crime issues. Particularly, what's particularly interesting is to address the root of what's causing crime. I know in the past, a lot of the initiatives have been to deal with crime once it happens, and not enough focus on the root cause, what causes criminal activity. So a lot more attention focusing on addressing the root causes of that this year and the year ahead. So those are just 4 of the key focuses of the administration this year that you can look forward to. Another announcement for you this morning: the Office of the Prime Minister has been in touch with representation from Endeavour Development International related to Bahamian workers not being paid for a significant period in Abaco. This is a story that's coming out of Abaco of a company that has been operating there but apparently has not been paying its staff since sometime last year. Today, the Prime Minister was made aware of the complaint, and workers can rest assured that the matter will now be investigated. This government will not allow foreign investors, or anyone by that matter, to take advantage of Bahamian workers and vendors. And so the Prime Minister, in a conversation this morning, says now that he's been made aware today of what has been transpiring, he will intervene to ensure there is resolution. So we'll continue to follow on this story and give you an update on that. And then finally, the Youth Climate Ambassadors, the Office of the Prime Minister and the Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit are now accepting applications for the Bahama Bahamas' 2023-2024 Youth Climate Ambassadors. Bahamas Youth Climate Ambassadors are able to network with international youth programs to draw attention to the Bahamas and its issues relative to climate change. Youth ambassadors also identify projects and programs that can be implemented in the Bahamas to advance action for climate empowerment and its climate change and youth agenda. The application deadline is January 23rd, coming up in a few weeks. Apply at www.youthclimateready.com. That's www.youthclimateready.com. Those are the announcements we have from Prime Minister. I'll take your questions. Let's begin with Leandra Roll from the Tribune. Hi, Leandra. Hi.
First question, I know you mentioned about the learning loss, how the testing is supposed to begin soon. Any particular timeline? Because I know initially it was supposed to begin last year, but I think it was pushed back obviously to this year.
Yeah. The Ministry of Education will make an announcement on it. I don't want to preempt them. They're talking to the Ministry of Education. They're now ready to begin what was delayed, and they're going to announce how they're going to do it and the time frame attached to it and when we can expect some results from it. She does have some preliminary results, and I think she'll announce that at a special news conference that they probably will have. But it's going to be a priority, first off, at the beginning of this year, to be able to address that matter.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure.
Have officials fully reimbursed the Treasury for the Bermuda trip last year?
The Congressional Liberal Party? Yes. That's fully behind us. Thank you. Let's go to Cleopatra Murphy. Is that on SNU? Hi, Cleo.
Government would have introduced a draft marital rape legislation that they said was put forward for consultation. Can you say when we can expect that to be tabled in the House?
No time frame. Right, no time frame yet. Speaking with the minister who's leading this initiative, Minister of Social Services, Urban Development, Minister Obi Wiscombe, they want to complete the dialogue. He says the reason why there's no time frame on it is they want to actually exhaust all avenues in addressing and looking at this proposed legislation. He did say they have another meeting with the Baptist community. They've called and requested another meeting. So that's expected to happen. They also want to meet with the Christian Council to make sure there is clarity on the proposed legislation. That hasn't happened as yet. And any other stakeholders that may come forward and say, listen, we need to talk more about it. So that's why there's no framework attached to it, because instead of bringing the legislation in and having debates and disagreements, they want to make sure they have buy-in from all parties involved on all sides. And so that's continuing to happen, which is why no date has been attached to it going to Parliament as yet.
You mentioned crime, the economy and whatnot. So where is that on government's priority agenda?
We don't want to say whether it's a priority item or not. It's happening. And so as a dialogue takes place, and that's why it's difficult to say, this is an urgent priority, because as you wrap up, he just said he wrapped up meetings and some dialogues, and then there's another phone call. And so that's why you can't really attach a priority time limit to it, because what he's trying to do is engage all stakeholders. And so as long as it takes to engage all stakeholders that are relevant in this legislation being able to be presented before Parliament, he wants to do that. And so he's been given the liberty to do that until they completely have buy-in on something. So that's why we're going to try and continuously update you as he moves from one stage to the next. But once that's completed, then they can move to the next stage.
The Attorney General also previously talked about introducing human rights legislation with regards to citizenship and immigration. When are those going to be presented? How soon?
Once cabinet will determine if and when immigration and citizenship legislation will be introduced. That has to happen at the cabinet level, and then we can proceed and begin to talk about anything further. But it's not been presented to the cabinet yet, and once that takes place, then we can begin to put timelines in place.
And another thing is the Freedom of Information Act that the Chief Justice would have mentioned yesterday. How soon can you expect full implementation for that? And is there any real political will to see that happen?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is being implemented. The PIL stage is launching. Training is underway in the government agencies right now as we speak. So it is in the process of being launched. It's not just sitting on the shelf. The process is taking place. The training is taking place. The first stage is being launched. Yes, there is willpower to do it. It was something Prime Minister said when I spoke with him this morning. He has the willpower to see it fully implemented.
Do you anticipate we will see that happen before this administration completes its term in office?
I can't say. I'm happy that he said there is a willpower there's political will to see it happen. We've seen the first stage now being implemented, so that means it's on this way. If you're training people in various agencies on being able to handle the Freedom of Information Act, and it's in the first stage, it's already been launched, so that means it's happening. And I think we'll be here pretty soon when we can begin to see manifestation of that actually happening. But it's happening. It's not on the shelf. I repeat, it's not on the shelf. It's being implemented. But there are stages to the implementation before it's absolutely complete, and that has started. So this administration is actually beginning to bring freedom of information into play by training the agencies, have identified the agencies, training them, and launching it into government sector. So it's beginning. Thank you, Cleo. Let's go to Megan Shepherd, our news. Hi, Megan.
Good morning. Situation Abaco, can you tell us a little bit more about the company and how many employees are being affected by that?
I don't have much more than what I've said. We don't have a number yet. Prime Minister's just now been made aware of it. He's going to investigate into it. So hopefully we'll be able to get some figures as to what's owed, how many people are owed. Only thing we know is that this is a company that has partnership with an investor, a foreign investor, as well as a local partner. And they were doing some construction work along with for Baker's Bay. They were contracted to do some work with Baker's Bay. We understand that some of the employees have not been paid since last year, September sometime. Understanding there's been some talking about it on social media, but never a formal complaint until we saw something, and then we checked into it and found out that it is an actual real issue that's happening. And the Prime Minister has now been made aware of it, and so he is now going to do what he needs to do to get the information around it and to address the issue and to hopefully bring resolution.
The Grand Bahama Housing Project, how many homes are anticipated? When can we see foundations being laid?
Yeah. Well, I don't know just yet. The Ministry of Housing is finalizing that. They've just gone through the first stages of approval and looking at who they're going to partner with to get it done. It's going to be a private partnership with government, private-public partnership. And once that's ready to go, the Ministry of Housing will release the information and announce it further.
And can we get an update on the sunken ship off of Abaco and what's happening with that and cleanup efforts and protecting the environment?
Yeah, I have nothing further. Yesterday, we issued a statement was issued from the Ministry of Transport. That's the latest we have on it. We have nothing further on it. Transport has been leading this initiative with environment, and they've been speaking to it. I know they would have released a statement yesterday to that end that really says, and I can tell you what the statement says, the Ministry of Transport and Housing is advising members of the public that efforts to monitor and address the sinking of MV Onego Traveler off Abaco, the Bahamas remain ongoing. The primary focus of efforts by the Ministry of Transport and Housing and Environment and Natural Resources, Department of Planning and Protection, the Department of Environmental Health Services, and the Port Department is to ensure that salvage operations are conducted in a safe manner and that the marine environment is protected. The Ministry of Transport and Housing is receiving daily progress reports from Resolve Marine, which is overseeing the salvage operations. The cargo remains submerged and consists of 3,119 tons of steel coils and 4,505 tons of ferrix in bulk. Divers continue to inspect the sunken vessel. The booms remain in place and continue to hold. Efforts to remove the fuel are continuing. Public is advised to stay away from the area. The government of the Bahamas wishes to assure the Bahamian people, especially the residents of Abaco, that diligent efforts to resolve the incident are being taken. The Ministry of Transport and Housing will continue to share additional information with members of the public as more details become available. That was the last information we've received from them just yesterday as well. All right, thank you, Megan. Let's go to JCN. Hi, Destiny. How you doing, Destiny?
Are there any updates on the discussions with the petroleum dealers?
None that we have yet. Minister Alcides has been working very hard to deal with the petroleum dealers, to deal with pharmaceutical operators, pharmacy operators, to deal with grocery operators as well, wholesalers and retailers. And so we have no new update yet, just yet, on that. But we do know that those talks are progressing well. Thank you. Let's go to Eyewitness News. Let's go to Jose Edian from Broadcast. And then we'll go to Crystal Darling. So let's go to Jose. And I'm somebody not joking that you might stand, so don't act fool.
Yes, sir. So could you give us the total cost of the Bermuda ship since it's been fully paid off?
We're trying to finalize the total amount of that. I think it's close to, from the records that I've received, it's just under $60,000 in total for the entire thing.
And then as it relates to what happened during the majority rule celebrations, what could we expect as a response from the Prime Minister? Obviously, he has yet to respond to what happened as it relates to Lady Pindling's angry rebuke.
The Prime Minister is always concerned. And I want the record to reflect the Prime Minister has always been very respectful and grateful to anyone who served our country. He talks about it a lot in his speeches. He talks about it when he's talking to heads of state, people visiting. He talks a lot about the history of the Bahamas and people who have contributed to us getting to where we are today. He's always been very appreciative of that, and that doesn't change. He's very appreciative of the contributions of all of our forefathers and leaders who have paved the way, majority rule, and in the Bahamas gaining independence, and the things that we've achieved. Dame Margaret is a part of that. She has a place in history. And you've seen that by her elevation in a number of offices and the contributions that the administration has made in acknowledging her. That's how the Prime Minister feels. And if he wants to talk about it, he will himself. I don't want to talk to him in that regard because it's personal for him. And I would leave that to him to address and talk about should he desire to. But I can tell you, he is very appreciative to those who have served our country and to those who have paved the way for many, particularly people like him, to be able to hold the office that they hold today. He's always been indebted and shown a great amount of gratitude, and that no doubt will change.
Well, several months after consulting stakeholders and church leaders, government has yet to make a decision on marital rape. And this is now causing critics to suggest that government is kind of relying too heavily on the church's opinion and stance on it. Spoke with the social services minister. He says they would have met with some Baptist leaders. They're now hoping to meet with the Christian Council as that entity, right? What do you say to critics who suggest that the government is relying too heavily on the church as it relates to marital rape?
It's not a matter of relying heavily on the church. The meetings are not just with the church. Those are the meetings that are upcoming, but those aren't the only meetings they have met with. They have met with organizations, they've met with women's groups, they've met with civic organizations, and so it's not just lopsided as it appears by saying the Christian groups. Those may be the meetings that they've just concluded with or are having next, but it's not only been the church. It's been a well-rounded approach, and that is because with something that's been so sensitive to the Bahamian people and has caused a lot of discussions on both sides, the government wants to make sure that it's making the best representation for the Bahamian people, and the only way you can do that is by having full consultation. In the past, governments have been scolded for not having enough consultation. We don't want that to be the issue regarding something that's very important or something that's been very controversial to people. We want to make sure there's full consultation. And that's why, in this regard, ensuring that meeting with all the relevant groups who have requested a meeting is the only proper thing to do.
That's a big part of my first question. What has been the Prime Minister's response to Fred Mitchell's response to Lady Pindling demanding an apology?
He hasn't had any response. It's not something we've discussed with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is well aware of what's been transpiring and happening, and if he deems it appropriate to talk to the Bahamian people about it, he will. I can almost guarantee you, though, that knowing the nature of the Prime Minister, he deals with the individuals. And I think his focus will always be in talking to the Pindling family and assuring his support and appreciation for what they've done. Thank you. Yes. Eyewitness News Online, Crystal, Caroline.
Okay, so for clarity and to piggyback off Jose's question about the churches, the NGOs, they have been criticizing the government on meeting with the churches and it seeming one-sided. So is it that the NGOs are required to reach out to the government, or will they wait on the government? Should they wait on the government to reach out to them in talking about the marital rape issue?
No, feel free. We've seen that the lead minister on this has been Minister Obi Wiscombe, and if there's any entity that feels that they want to have a contribution to this, feel free to reach out to him to have their input in it.
Okay. And for how is the government working to cut back on spending as we continue to fight inflation? What's just in a nutshell, the game plan for 2020?
Yeah, well, like I said when I announced it, these are the focuses this year. Cabinet is going to meet. Cabinet has only had one meeting for the year in this regard, and so they're going to meet to determine what are the best measures, and of course discuss those with the stakeholders. I don't want to preempt that because of course we want to make sure that stakeholders are on board with the decisions that have to be made, or at least appreciate what's going on. But there will be measures that are introduced, and once that happens, the Bahamian public will know about them.
And any advice for members of the public, the Bahamian people, residents, who may be struggling with that inflation and dealing with the cost?
I don't think people want advice from a press secretary. Well, no, I think the relevant agencies will talk more about it. We have a consumer protection agency. They've been doing some things throughout the holiday season, and you're going to see more of that happen in the new year. The agencies that deal with being able to help people spend a little more, you'll see more tips coming out on that. And so I advise people to just look for those, and you'll see those to help get you through it. And perhaps one of the things we're going to do in these press briefings this year, as we've done in highlighting businesses, is also perhaps highlight opportunities that people can find tips on how to save. Thanks for that suggestion, Crystal. Thank you, Crystal. Let's go to who have left up? Shelley Lewis, Global Radio. Hey, Shelley.
I have two questions. One, what is the status of that assessment from the multi-dimensional committee with regards to Abaco? We've been told that is forthcoming, but we're yet to hear what's going on, and we've been seeing a lot of videos,
things happening,
happening on Abaco. And, we need to know what's going on. And furthermore, what is the status of the talks with regards with the OAS and the United States and the Bahamas?
Okay, first question. I was so excited. I thought I would have had some some news today to give you. Unfortunately, the item didn't happen in cabinet yesterday. It will be on Tuesday's agenda, and so hopefully after that we can give you some good news. But there is going to be some significant movement that we can tell you regarding that. So I'll have that for you for next week. And your second question again?
Last year with the price control list, the number of retailers did not really comply.
Right.
And the government did mention that it was a trial basis. What is the status moving forward?
I don't know. I can't give anything further on that because I'm not familiar with it being a trial basis. I know the government did say it was for a temporary period, not really a trial. It was just for a temporary period to be able to give consumers some relief. So that's going to be revisited as far as what will happen next. That's all a part of the meetings and talks that will take place with the relevant persons involved. And then we'll hear some more on what will happen, whether it will continue, whether it will be changed or whatever. We expect to have that once these meetings wrap up, that the Minister, Halkitis, has been engaged in. And we'll be able to give you the next step forward in those. All right. Any other questions? I know our business people are very saturated with all of the financial talks they've had earlier, but I just want to make sure we cover everybody. All right. Yes, of course, Yuri.
Pharmacies. The pharmacies are under the impression that these price controls are going to end in January 17th. Is that still the case, or is that going to be?
That's why I said we wait and wait to hear what comes out of these talks, because all of those various entities are going to meet with the minister, and we'll know what's happening going forward from that. So hopefully, once they would have met with the very relevant agencies, we can tell you what's happening with pharmacies, grocery operators, and gas retailers. Those are the three sectors who are meeting with the minister. Thank you.
Did the government ever meet with Toby?
Actually, I think there is supposed to be an update regarding meeting with Toby. I blindly may have seen a meeting schedule. I don't know whether it happened or it is going to happen, but I did see something in my passing. I'll follow up on that for you, because I know people are concerned about what's going on with that piece and a plot of land. All right? Okay, that's our press briefing for you today. I know y'all looking like y'all hungry. We'll start that next week. All right? So thank you all for joining us. If you do have any questions, you know how to reach us at our press office. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you.